What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, the Detroit Lions are in full offseason mode. They're hiring, they're firing, they're interviewing people. They're doing all the fun stuff when it comes to finding the new regime for 2021 and beyond, and when it comes to finding the successors to Quinn Trisha. And in today's video, I have another fantastic head coaching candidate for you in Carolina Panthers offensive coordinator Joe Brady. Now, Joe Brady has been one of the hotter names in the NFL. I've seen a couple Lions fans ask for him. I've seen the Texans interviewing him. I've seen a lot of real good stuff about Joe Brady, and I figured I'd bring it to you guys today. Talk about what he's done in the NFL, talk about what he's done at the college level, his success, his failures, his weaknesses, his strengths, and what he would do as the Detroit Lions head coach if he were given the opportunity. Now, before we get into the video, if you are new to the channel and are enjoying this Detroit Lions content, please consider liking the videos and subscribing to the channel. It takes only 2 seconds out of your day to do so, and it helps the channel out more than you could know. If you could do that, just take those 2 seconds to like and subscribe. It's quick, easy, free, and it would help the channel out more than you could know. But with all that being said, and without any further ado, let's get into finding the right head coach and looking at potential coaching candidate Joe Brady. Now, as I said, Joe Brady has been kind of a hot name around the NFL. The Texans just interviewed him, or they are set to interview him in the very near future. I've seen Lions fans ask for Joe Brady. I've seen a lot of other NFL teams be very, very high on Joe Brady. And, I can see why. He has a lot of real good qualities, and he has a ton of potential as a future head coaching candidate. And I truly believe, whether it be this year or next offseason, he will get a head coaching job in the NFL. I have no doubt in my mind that Joe Brady, with all the success that he has, with all the potential that he has, he will be a head coach one day, whether it be this offseason or the next offseason. I have no doubt that he will one day be a head coach and will be the successor to somebody that has the job right now. But in terms of looking at Joe Brady, looking at his strengths, looking at his weaknesses, and looking at what makes him promising as a head coach, there's a couple key things that I look at and that I see that make me, kind of excited and very intrigued by Joe Brady. Now, the one positive that I found immediately was he was an offensive assistant under Sean Payton. He was an offensive assistant for the New Orleans Saints for the 2017 and the 2018 season. And of course, Sean Payton, as we know, is one of the greatest coaches, one of the greatest schemers, one of the better play callers in the NFL right now. So the fact that he learned from one of the better coaches, we talked about Sean Mcvay when we played the Saints. I don't know, me and a bunch of other people were talking, and we said that, Sean Payton and the Saints were going to put up at least 21, even with all the injuries they had in week 4, just because Sean Payton is such a good play caller, and he knows how to use his players to their strengths and maximize their value. So the fact that he learned under Sean Payton for 2 years makes it very, very intriguing, because again, he's a very young, innovative offensive mind, and a lot of Lions fans are looking for that. A lot of Lions fans are looking for that next Sean McVay. A lot of Lions fans like offensive-minded guys. A lot of Lions fans want the young guy. A lot of Lions fans want the guy that with a ton of upside, with all the potential. And if you're looking for that guy, Joe Brady is your answer. If you're looking for that guy, Joe Brady is probably at the top of your list. Now, Joe Brady is known, and he is, hyped about, and he is talked about mostly for his work at LSU as their pass game coordinator. He was kind of their offensive coordinator, kind of their pass game coordinator. It was kind of a weird, situation, kind of a weird position he was in. It was officially titled the pass game coordinator, but I believe he called some offensive plays as well. He got his feet wet in that area a little bit and did work with LSU, obviously a lot. Worked with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and all of those guys. And obviously, if you go back to 2019 and you look at that LSU offense, they were one of the greatest college football offenses to ever play the game. You got Joe Burrow in just 15 games passing for 5,671 passing yards, 60 passing touchdowns with just 6 interceptions. Along with that, obviously winning the Heisman and going with the #1 overall pick to the Cincinnati Bengals. But you go over to the rushing attack as well. You had Clyde Edwards-Helaire on that team who had 1,414 yards on the ground along with 16 rushing touchdowns. He also got very involved in the receiving game on screen passes and quick passes out of the flat. He was very involved, obviously was a huge weapon in that LSU national championship offense. He had 1,414 yards and 16 touchdowns. On that team, you also also had two 1,000 plus yard receivers, including Jamar Chase, who is going to be a top draft selection in this upcoming draft, who finished the season in 2019 with 1,780 yards with 20 receiving touchdowns, which would be phenomenal in its own right if he didn't have a partner in Justin Jefferson, who also had 1,540 receiving yards and 18 touchdowns. So Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson both had over 1,500 yards and both had at least 18 touchdowns. With Joe Burrow winning the Heisman, Clyde Edwards-Helaire almost having a 1,500 rushing yard season, LSU's offense was one of the greatest offenses college football had ever seen, and Joe Brady was a big part of that. Joe Brady was the mastermind behind a majority of LSU's success in 2019, and that is why he got the job. That is what propelled him to the NFL level, and that is what landed him the offensive coordinator job for the Carolina Panthers. Now, if you look at the Carolina Panthers, they did not have as much offensive success as some people were looking for. They did not have as much offensive success as I was hoping to see. And, Carolina's offense wasn't horrible this season, but it definitely wasn't the most flashy. It definitely wasn't the greatest. It definitely wasn't the highest scoring or the flashiest or had the most big plays or anything like that. In fact, Carolina actually had a below average offense this year, as they had 4,129 passing yards with 16 passing touchdowns on the season. Now, that is without Teddy Bridgewater starting one game. That is with PJ Walker starting against our Detroit Lions, and I believe he had a couple snaps in a few other games. So, that a little bit is taken down because you're obviously playing with your backup quarterback for a game that could really, really affect you. The Carolina Panther quarterbacks also threw 16 interceptions, so they were very even touchdown to interception ratio. It was literally 1-to-1. 4,129 passing yards in a season is not a horrible offense in the NFL, but you're seeing teams now that get more than that. You're seeing a ton of quarterbacks get more than that. Matthew Stafford by himself had more than that. It was, not a bad passing season by any means, but if you're going from this LSU offense that put up ungodly numbers, 5,600 passing yards in 15 games, then you go to the NFL, you have Teddy Bridgewater, who admittedly isn't the best quarterback in the NFL, not a bad quarterback per se, but he's not Joe Burrow. He's not going to push the ball down the field. He's not that kind of quarterback, so I kind of understand it from that standpoint, and the stats don't tell you the whole story. However, the Carolina offense just wasn't super explosive, wasn't super flashy, didn't score a ton of points, and overall was kind of disappointing this season. On the ground, the Carolina Panthers as a team had 1,709 rushing yards to go along with 19 rushing touchdowns. Now, no running back on the team played in all 16 games. I believe McCaffrey only played in 3, and the other running backs, I believe the most they played in was 14 or 15 games. No running back on the roster played in all 16 games, so that was a huge deficit for Joe Brady in his first season as an offensive coordinator in the NFL. And as I said a minute ago, stats don't tell the entire story, right? Stats are good, they're reliable, they're going to tell you a lot about a football team, but the stats are not 100% liable. The stats are not 100% representative of what this Carolina Panthers team had to endure this season. Now, Carolina was not a great offense statistically. However, if you do look at their injuries, it's a little, kind of easier to see why they might have struggled with some injuries. Only 7 of their offensive players played in every single game, and only 2 of those players started every single game, one of those being the center. So, you look at offensive production, you look at all these different numbers, but at the end of the day, if your team is injury prone, if your best running back gets hurt, if your quarterback gets hurt, if 2 of your top 3 receivers can't play in every single game, you're going to have a hard time producing in the NFL, because this is a competitive league. The NFL is so, if you're in the NFL, you're a top 1% of the top 1% of the top 1%ers. It is a competitive league, and any slight disadvantage for an NFL team could be very, very costly, because you lose Teddy Bridgewater for a game, you lose Christian McCaffrey for a majority of the season, DJ Moore missed a game or 2, Curtis Samuel missed a game or 2. You look at all these weapons that the Carolina Panthers had going into the NFL season, and a majority of them did not get to play the entire season. A majority of them missed games, a majority of them at least missed a decent amount of time. Curtis Samuel only started 5 games for them. DJ Moore, I believe, played in 15 of the 16 games, but even then, he was not fully healthy the entire season, and that could be a big deficit, especially for a first-year offensive coordinator, especially for a guy whose first year in the NFL had to deal with a lot of adversity, a lot of struggle, and obviously went from being on one of the most talented rosters and calling for one of the most talented rosters the world had ever seen. He went from calling games for one of the most talented offenses at at that level to going to the Carolina Panthers, who didn't have all that offensive power. They didn't have a quarterback that was going to push the ball down the field. They didn't have a healthy running back the whole season that could get explosive yards in the rushing and the receiving game. They had good wide receivers, but they weren't always available for each and every football game. Again, I don't think stats tell the entire story, because I mentioned earlier, he learned under Sean Payton. Joe Brady learned a lot from Sean Payton, and you can see some of that reminisce in his play calling. From the Carolina Panthers games I did watch, admittedly, not a lot of them because I'm not a Carolina Panthers fan, but from what I did see from the Carolina Panthers, he called pretty decent football games. I thought he called good football games. I didn't think the play calling was incredibly stale. I thought he was pretty good at it. He didn't have the most offensive success stat-wise, but I thought from a play calling standpoint, from the standpoint of him actually drawing up the plays and how to execute the plays, the way he drew up and called the plays was better than what was executed on the field the majority of the time, in my opinion. And I did see a lot of positive. I did see a lot of flash. I did see a lot of potential from Joe Brady, and I do believe Joe Brady can be the next Sean McVay. I do think he has that potential. And of course, everybody in the NFL since Sean McVay has been looking for that next guy. They've been looking for that next young, intellectual, game-changing kind of a guy that looks at the NFL from a different perspective, comes in with a whole different game plan, a whole different philosophy that the NFL has never seen before. And Joe Brady very much has the capability of being that guy. He has the potential to be the next Sean McVay. However, the one thing that scares me away from Joe Brady is his inexperience. He has 1 year as an offensive coordinator. Every other year he's been a pass game coordinator, which is not bad. It's very close to an offensive coordinator, but that's not necessarily calling every single play for an entire season. He's been an offensive coordinator for 1 year and the stats weren't fantastic. He didn't have a great offense in the NFL. Other than that, he was an offensive assistant in college and with the New Orleans Saints. So his inexperience scares me a little bit, because for every Sean McVay, and I said this before on stream, and I've said this before on videos, I'm sure, for every Sean McVay, there's 3 Hugh Jacksons, right? For every young, innovative head coach that comes in and turns a franchise around, there is a very hyped up, very, well-known coach that is expected to do well in the NFL, is expected to have a good offensive philosophy, is expected to help turn a team around, and he comes in and he goes like 2 in whatever Hugh Jackson went. I don't even know what he had. He went 0-16 as a coach, he went 1-15 as a coach. I think he got fired with 0 wins in his 3rd season. Like, for every Sean McVay, there's 3 Hugh Jacksons, and that's what scares me, because the Lions have never hit on that Sean McVay. They always get the Hugh Jackson side of it. They always get the bust of a head coach. They always get the guy that isn't quite ready to be a head coach. They always get the guy who is not the next Sean McVay, and if they are going to swing for the fences again, if they're going to go out and sign and hire Joe Brady to be the head coach, it scares me a lot. Because, yes, what he did in college and what he did at the college level was phenomenal and exceptional, and every positive word you can use doesn't describe how good that LSU offense was. But from what I've seen from him in the NFL, it hasn't been great. He didn't have the greatest passing attack. He didn't have the greatest rushing attack. He didn't, have the greatest offense in general. Didn't have a lot of yards per play. Didn't have a lot of explosive plays. He had some here and there, and you saw a lot of highlights. You saw a lot of flashes of what Joe Brady's offense can be, but I did not see the consistency. I did not see them consistently execute. I did not see him consistently help his players enough to get an offense to where I want it to be, to actually seriously consider him as a head coach for my team. I want somebody that's proven in the NFL. Or if you're only in college, if you've never worked in the NFL before, I want somebody who's continuously proven themselves in college. Urban Meyer proved himself in college for 17 years. PJ Fleck has proven himself at the college level for 8 years with 2 different programs. Some of the bigger name head coaches that are coming out of college and some of the big name head coaches that are getting hyped from the college levels have proven that they can be successful there for a long period of time. Joe Brady did it for 1 season, and that's, could be an outlier because, again, that was one of the most talented teams college football had ever seen. And, he comes to the NFL, admittedly less talented, more competition. I understand. I knew Carolina was not going to put up these, LSU-esque stats. I knew they weren't going to pass for 5,600 yards. I knew Teddy Bridgewater wasn't going to get 60 touchdowns, but I would have liked to see more from Joe Brady's offense in his first year as a coordinator. If you look at Robert Saleh, the guy that seems to be the favorite right now, he's been successful at the NFL level for a couple years now. He had the #1 defense in 2019, and even with all the injuries to sustained in 2020, his defense wasn't half bad. His defense was above average for a majority of the season. Yeah, they had a couple of down performances here and there, but everybody's going to have those performances. But for the most part, even through adversity, even through injury, at the highest level of competition, Robert Saleh continued to have a good team. He continued to have a good roster and a good squad, and continued, even through injuries and even through adversity, to put up the statistics to back up the claims that are said about him. Joe Brady did not do that. He did not show me enough in his first season as an offensive coordinator where I can look and watch the Lions hire this guy and say with 100% confidence, I have full trust in this person to turn my franchise around. I have 100% faith in this person that they will be the greatest head coach that I've ever seen, that they will be the next Sean McVay. I have not seen enough from Joe Brady yet, and I know the potential is up there. I know the potential is the next Sean McVay. And Sean McVay is great. Sean McVay has his Rams in the playoffs. He took them to a Super Bowl 2 years ago. I mean, he is running a very successful organization. But again, for every Sean McVay, there's 3 Hugh Jacksons, and every single time the Lions get Hugh Jackson, every single time they go for the young, the innovative head coach, the guy that isn't proven, the guy that hasn't done anything at the NFL level, or a guy that's been, young and up and coming, and a guy that they're giving his first shot really in the NFL as a head coach, it doesn't usually work. And especially with Joe Brady being so unproven, I just don't think the Lions can do that. I don't think they can afford to swing with Joe Brady and miss yet again. I don't think they can afford that with the roster they have in place, with the draft picks and the capital that they have right now, and the way that they want to be in the 2020 season. I don't think they can afford to swing with Joe Brady and afford to miss. So for me, I think there's a ton of potential for Joe Brady, and obviously I'm rooting for him at the next level. I'm rooting for him if he does get a head coaching job. I'll always root for pretty much everybody except Aaron Rodgers. But I would love Joe Brady to be successful. And if he comes here, I'm going to be more than willing to give him a chance. I'm going to love Joe Brady if he does come here, because again, that potential is super, super high. But the fact of the matter is, he has not shown enough in the NFL, to me at least, to warrant a head coaching position with my team. Maybe next year, if he goes back to Carolina, has another good season, if he puts up real good statistics again, if his offense is clicking with Christian McCaffrey back, with DJ Moore back, with maybe a different quarterback, or if Teddy Bridgewater is just healthy with the second year in the system, maybe he plays better. For me, I want to see more. For me, I need a second year out of Joe Brady in the NFL before I can truly consider hiring him as the head coach and for the leader of my franchise. For me, Joe Brady is a no-go. For me, Joe Brady would not be the worst candidate of all. Joe Brady would not be the worst candidate for the Lions to go out and hire, but he's far from the top candidate. He's far from the best candidate. And for me, he has all the upside in the world, but his unprovenness scares me a lot. So with all that being said, though, that is all I got for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think about Joe Brady down in the comments below. What do you think about the hire? Would you hire Joe Brady? Would you at least give him a chance? Would you interview him? Would you hire him if you're the Detroit Lions? What would you guys do? I'd be very curious to know your opinion on the situation and on the coaching candidates. But with all that being said, that is all I got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you all tomorrow with more Lions content. If you are new to the channel, as I said in the beginning, please consider liking the videos and subscribing to the channel. It takes 2 seconds out of your day. It's quick, it's easy, it's free. It helps me out more than you can know. It helps the channel out more than you could know. I'd be super appreciative for it. But with all that being said, and with all that being the case, that is all I got for you guys today. Thank y'all so much for watching this video, and I will see you all tomorrow with more NFL content. Thank you all so much for watching. Bye, guys.